Kate Mila Falcha. Welcome to Irish Granny Helen. It's time for our Saturday book. Well, we're continuing our Saturday book, Vatican Secrets, Part 2. I had to cut the last video short because my animals were having kittens down there. So my parrot was torturing my dogs and they were all making noise. So the dogs are now in the yard with my husband, and the parrot, I have shut her in a room. That is terrible. I hate doing that. Parrots are really intelligent. And one of the things about them that I believe is that they're often extremely intuitive. She always knows what I'm thinking about. And she's always aware of the fact that I'm annoyed, and she knows exactly what's annoying me. So I went down there, tell her to be quiet and stop torturing the dogs, and she responded with, ha ha ha. She laughed at me and then continued to make the noise. So let's hope that she'll get out of her mood and calm down. I gave her some walnuts. That'll make her very happy. So let's talk about part 2, video number 2 of the secrets, the Vatican Secrets, the archive, UFOs, alien technology, and the hidden archive. We are beginning, that was all by way of introduction, that first video. And now we are in part 1, the Vatican Secret Archive. So okay, so there's been a lot of talk that things that are really controversial, enormous secrets have been kept in the archives. And of course, as we asked 17 times in the last video, why is that? Well, one of the things is they could have information that might subvert the official historical narrative. Like maybe we are hybrids and maybe they weren't gods, they were ETs. That's basically what this book is hinting at. And I suppose that would be a revolutionary notion for a lot of people. But then also that there's advanced technology. And one of the more controversial things that people talk about is not that intelligent beings from elsewhere have advanced technology, but that it existed on Earth in our ancient past. So there's a lot of fear. Fear motivates some of this. This knowledge could undermine religious authority. They're really afraid of that. It could trigger social upheaval. War of the Worlds, remember that? So officially, the origin of the archive itself was in 1612. Pope Paul V, a lot of Pauls, Paul V. He created this archive as something separate from the official Vatican library, and it was originally immediately intended for confidential documents. But actually, the truth is, they think that they had been keeping things much earlier, that they've been archiving them much, much earlier. Even, well, we're talking 1612, Paul V, they're talking early Middle Ages. And I think it's important to remember that writing was not necessarily the most common thing. There were books, there were libraries, what passed for books, there were libraries, there was speech writing and letter writing and the meditations of Marcus Aurelius. There was writing, but it was being done by a tiny elite minority. Most people who weren't patrician or wealthy or son of the pharaoh, they didn't go to school, they worked in the fields. So to say that they were keeping things from the early Middle Ages, that's not too surprising, because that's, the early Middle Ages being maybe in the 300s, that's when the church became an official institution, the Roman Catholic Church, and that's when documents were kept. So no surprise. So for example, one of the things that they claim they have are the how would I say it? The transcript of the trials of Galileo. The Vatican knew about what he was talking about. The sun is in the center, and the Earth and the other planets revolve around the sun, heliocentrism. That went against the earlier teachings of the church, which was the Earth is the center of God's creation. And they could not admit to the public that they understood what Galileo was saying was true, because that would undo science up to that time. It would be revolutionary. Pardon the pun. Be revolutionary, and to admit that would admit they had been wrong, and they couldn't do that. So it was easier just to bring Galileo at the stake. And then, of course, stuff that was in the Library of Alexandria, the Vatican supposedly has that. So we're talking, get this, 85 kilometers of shelves, 52.817 miles of written material. And it includes secret trials that were held behind closed doors, letters between popes and monarchs manipulating geopolitics, and the Pope playing a gigantic role in that, historical events that happened but were never publicized to, never revealed to ordinary people, which was a lot easier to do in the past because there was no internet. So they wanted to control the historical narrative. They wanted to control the religious narrative because they wanted control. They also wanted to maintain control. They didn't want society freaking out. They were afraid that all of the paradigms would just be shaken up. So once again, the book says it might be ET contact, advanced tech from ETs, an apocryphal history of humanity, like an alternate story, not Adam and Eve in the garden, references to unexplained phenomena, celestial sightings, etc. So who has access to all this stuff? Why are they keeping it if only the Pope gets to see it? Who has access? Well, it's extremely selective, and as you're going to find out, the rigmarole people go through to try to get in there is crazy. You thought getting on an airplane was tough going. Wait till you hear what you have to do to get into the Vatican Archives. The Pope, of course, and then a few chosen clergy people who work in the archives. And not every department gets to know about every other department. It's a need-to-know basis. Some scholars can formally request to see a certain document. Much of it is inaccessible even to them. And there is no public catalog. You don't get to peruse it like the Sears catalog and figure out what you'd like to look at. Recently, small numbers of historical texts have been opened up. For example, this is the big one. Pius XII, who was the Pope during World War II, who was trying to protect the Vatican and maybe a little help Italy, and trying to negotiate with people like Mussolini and Hitler. And it was a mess, and he didn't do a very good job. And there was a documentation of a lot of this, including documentation which hasn't been released of the rat line, in which the Pope facilitated the escape of Nazis out of Europe and into South America and to the United States. And accommodations made with the Holocaust, the final solution, in order to keep the Vatican safe. And some of that has gotten out, but not much. But there's other stuff that's gotten out. There are areas of speculation about communication between church people and powerful, famous historical figures and unexplained phenomena. These people know more than they want to share. UFO sightings in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, documents about tech, and the really serious secrets are deeply hidden because their impact could shift paradigms so much. They could be epochal. They could give the church a choice. They could either maintain their authority by reinterpreting theology with these new revelations that come out, or they could risk an unprecedented doctrinal crisis. So what it's saying is, if some of this stuff gets out, it's going to challenge people's belief in what the church has been saying. So will the church change its tune, or will it double down? And if it doubles down, are people going to revolt against it and reject it, or embrace it in fear? It's subtle, and it requires being able to predict human behavior, and that's difficult to do. And this is my little question. Did Pope Francis, try to get ahead of all this? Was he doing a little selective disclosure himself when he made his speech about our brothers and sisters in space? God's creative freedom is limited, and the Pope would be willing to baptize Martians. That's one of the things they said. And I'm not laughing because he said Martians. I'm laughing because they admitted it. That's just phenomenal. The scientific community is another kettle of fish that you have to deal with. There are a lot of them who would accept the information because they're truly curious and willing to entertain potential, show them facts, but they're willing to think about it. And there are those who would just reject it, even if there was concrete evidence. They would be like, oh, no, that's not true. You're faking it. Then you have to worry about global governments and also academic institutions. They'd be caught up trying to redefine their understanding of the universe and the role of religion in society and the role of particular countries and their claims for the rights of whatever they're up to today. And this would just shake the foundations of religion, science, geopolitics, history, faith, religion as an institution, faith as a belief system. So access to the archives is so shrouded in mystery, and it's hilarious what you have to go through. Was called the Vatican Secret Archive, but in 2019 they changed it to the Vatican Apostolic Archive. That has to do with Christian tradition in a thread from Jesus and the apostles up to now. So why the name change? What are they getting ready to talk about? It only fuels speculation when they're so restrictive about who has access to the information. Not very many scholars, not many researchers, and these people go through a vetting that is just crazy. You think that they were asking to man the space shuttle the way that they are studied and intensive background. They will not show recent documents. I thought this was interesting. They will let people who are given permission, and they go through hoops to get it, they will be allowed only access to documents older than 75 years old. That's weird. There's no public catalog, as we said, and much of it is inaccessible to anyone. It doesn't matter who you are, you're not going to get in. So what you have to do is request in writing. There's a formal procedure for whatever specific document you're interested in advance. You can't just go in and wander around and say, oh, can I read this? No, you have to know what you're looking for, which that makes it hard. So like what's never been seen because nobody knows it's there and they want to, ask to look at it. Who knows? This is all about control over science, control over critical thinking, control over people's belief systems to keep them under the thumb. They speculate there's information there about the Templars and their trials. The Knights Templar were some of the original Crusaders, and it's too complicated. I've covered it before. But there were bad things done, and most of them were murdered, and they want to hide that information because it's compromising. They have hidden revolutionary scientific discoveries that could advance technical progress because they don't feel we're ready for it. This is what people coming out of the archives have said who have worked there, that they hide cosmological theories about outer space. They hide evidence of lost civilizations, that there's evidence out there, but they're not providing it to the general public. It must drive them crazy that people speculate and get little tidbits and work forward with the tidbits. It must really challenge their sense of control. They have information about lost energy that challenges our current paradigm about that. Interdimensional travel. And they, this is a speculation, but I think it's very fair to say that they have maintained control to be the ones to shape our vision of reality. There are writings attesting to alternative views of human origins. There are documents on advanced medical knowledge, which would revolutionize modern science, which we're going to get into. There are prophecies from people of future events, including humanity and the role of the church. They probably don't want us to know that. There are predictions of global changes, like geographical changes, and of course, contact with ET civilizations. Some experts urge progressive revelation of secrets and greater scientific openness. Like, let's stop hemming and hawing. Let's just put this out there. The Vatican is going to be forced to reveal information because global knowledge is increasing. What's happening is they're sitting on information that people are discovering on their own by studying and speaking to alternative sources, not being told it's in the archives, but finding it out there themselves. Besides Galileo and the Templars, which would reveal errors that the church had made. Errors. Oops, it's an error. Sorry, we burned you at the stake. They believe they hold the letters of Mary Stuart from the 16th century before her execution. She wrote letters to Pope Sixtus V. There's the name. They own documentation of Pius XII's role, the role of the church with the Nazis, which we talked about. They have a papal bull, more than one, on the conquistadores. The bulls, I know I've talked about this before, but not in this context. A bull, like B-U-L-L, is actually short for a Latin word, bulla, B-U-L-L-A, and a bulla was like a metallic leaden seal that official documents were stamped with so that they were shut. It was like licking your envelope, and they had the stamp of the Pope on them, and it was this heavy duty, serious seal, so nobody could get into the information without breaking the seal that couldn't be fixed because it was lead, so they have these bulls with information about how the church treated indigenous people. This is from the conquistadores. We're talking the Mayans, the Incans, the Aztecs, who were just, among others, but they were the ones that were completely just destroyed. There's speculation that references have been made, that they have a gospel of Jesus that is completely different than what's in the New Testament, and it would reveal esoteric Gnostic knowledge that Jesus and his what his true relationship was to higher powers. They say there's a gospel of Judas, which reveals very different role of Judas Iscariot. He was not the villain he was purported to be. They needed a villain. the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and her relationship with Jesus, the original writings of the Essenes and lost mystical knowledge. A lot of this stuff was not the only document on it, was a copy, the only version, but they did a really good job of destroying what was in the hands of the public. The Dead Sea Scrolls were hidden, and that's why they were found. The Vatican has documents on all sorts of really controversial topics. There are rumors that a number of popes have had encounters themselves one-on-one with ETs, UFO sightings, and not only popes, but other clergy have, like close encounter type encounters. They have medieval documents about celestial machines in the sky, beings of light, possible encounters with superior intelligence. They say it 18 million different ways. In 2009, a Father Jose Frines worked at the Vatican Observatory, and he said that extraterrestrials are okay with the Roman Catholic Church. They're good with that now. That the religion does not any longer reject the notion as heretical. And he wrote about this in the official Vatican newspaper, the Observatory. So this created a big fuss, a furor, and people were speculating, is the Vatican preparing for a big disclosure? So some people believe there's a connection between discoveries of Da Vinci and his medieval alchemical writings, which seem to know more than he should have known. And the speculation is that he got this information from ancient civilizations, but now the documentation is hidden. And there's a lot of talk, we'll talk more later, about free energy, maps, lots of maps of Atlantis and other lost civilizations, with evidence that they existed and they had superior tech. I guess there's evidence there. Studies on longevity and cell regeneration that showed that we could revolutionize the lifespan of humans and the quality of life. There's information on future events, documentation on a third prophecy from Fatima, with shocking details about end times and the destiny of the Catholic Church. They have writings of Nostradamus and Malachi, who predicted all the popes, based on their nicknames. That clues on papal succession and apocalyptic events. Predictions on climate change and global cataclysms. Some, they're coming true, so that's scary. So to reveal all of this could jeopardize the Roman Catholic doctrine and the supremacy of the church. Although people might say, well, the church, how much supremacy does it really have these days? I think probably more than we in the United States really comprehend. I think it does. Could this upset the global political and economic balance? Yes. And they're afraid it might cause a panic. It could destabilize societies. People could go running out of the house with their hair on fire. That's what they're afraid of. But pressure for revelation, for disclosure, for transparency just mounts and mounts and mounts. So, we need to ask, are we ready for this? It could cause chaos. It could cost authority a lot. There could be a division in the people and a loss of authority. People might pick sides, So let's talk about the structure of this thing. The secret libraries, mysterious sealed cylinders that it has. The Vatican is the center of spiritual and political power, or has been for centuries. We could have a whole discussion about where it stands now, but I think what goes around comes around, and I think that maybe it's increasing at the moment. It's one of the oldest and most influential institutions in the world that's consistently been there. Governments come and go, and it's been there a long time. Former members of the Vatican Cura, C-U-R-A, which means to take care, it confirms that there are off-limit areas in the Vatican archives, and it takes jumping through hoops to get in. The Vatican system is underground. The archives are underground. It's a labyrinth, and it goes all under Vatican City. It was 52, 53 miles of hallways and rooms. There are kilometers of corridors, armored rooms full of stuff. There are up to 7 floors beneath the surface. It's just mind-boggling. I had no idea. The first levels are historical documents, rare works. They're not accessible to the public, but if they accidentally were seen, it wouldn't end the world, you know. The intermediate levels are completely prohibited. They have manuscripts and ancient technology, like the actual technology, and accounts of inexplicable events. At the very deepest level, they have relics and the knowledge, evidence of the knowledge that could alter human history, spiritually, historically, including contact with advanced civilizations. That's way down there where it can't be found. Most sensitive documents are kept in hermetically sealed cylinders, and they have advanced conservation techniques. They use pressure chambers. They used encrypted security systems. Some say the cylinders are made of metal alloys that are time and weather resistant and maybe of extraterrestrial origin to begin with. Others say they're made of advanced technical material based on lost knowledge. The documents are engraved with unknown techniques. Very interesting, some of these documents. They're holographic. They use quantum ink. They must be read with special instruments. This is odd. They have texts with advanced medicine and astronomy and physics in them. They have texts about Atlantis and Lemuria. They have reports on the Marian apparitions. They have eyewitness accounts from far in the past of anomalous celestial events and contact with ETs. They have revelations about relics. Now, that might not mean something to somebody who's not a Catholic. For example, the Shroud of Turin. I wasn't about to pay $20 to go see that, but people were lined up. It was incredible. There's a lot of power given to these relics, and they feel that, well, it's all denied officially, but people have attributed power to them. And often that's all it takes, because if people believe it, it's like voodoo. You know, if people believe it, it works. So they have testimonies of alternative historical events that would rewrite our understanding of our past, not just of our origins, but a lot of historical events. The cylinders that all these things are in may have been recovered from an ancient ruin. They don't know. They have an unknown source. They're linked to the mention of the divine and technology in the medieval manuscripts. They often are kept by secret orders of the church. For example, information on the Templars. They are said to have brought back forbidden knowledge from the Crusades. They found something in the Middle East that they dug up. And so the question, which is pure speculation, is ETs. And I guess this is a fair statement. Is it secret? Because even the Vatican doesn't know what they're looking at, and they can't admit that. And I think that's a fair assessment. Is it something they're unable to decipher? Is it too complex and therefore dangerous in the wrong hands? That is another thing to think about. Is it hidden? The stuff hidden to avoid spiritual crises of some sort. If they challenge faith, they have to hide it so as not to challenge their people's religious beliefs. And then, of course, upsetting global power. It could be too shocking. You know, people buy into belief systems, and when they're challenged, it shakes them up. I think we know this. It's hard to imagine what would happen. I would love to have a conversation about that. There may be similar secret information in other hands, like different governments, different organizations, and they might have their secrets too. We don't know. We don't even know what I'm going to call the Vatican our side. That's scary. What our side has. Are they trying to avoid a revolution of knowledge, or are they trying to protect it or protect us? The rumor is that the church was able to access lost ancient knowledge, and they're preserving and protecting the secret information. Ancient texts with advanced conservation techniques, for example. So this is revealed by Malachi Martin, who was a Jesuit and an author. He says that the Vatican is in possession in the archives of futuristic metallic glass that defies known physics, that they have showcases and containers made of this glass, that you can see through them like glass, but they're like metal, they don't break. And there are documents that reveal all about this as well. They have in the archives, they had advanced atmospheric control systems. They have extremely precise air conditioning, regulating temperature and pressure and humidity, the composition of the air, like the gases in the air. They even have oxygen-free environments to prevent natural degradation of ancient manuscripts and parchment. The oxygen in the environment, it slows decomposition. Oh, if you take it out of the environment, it slows decomposition, oxidation, obviously. It's often used in labs and really high-level museums. I guess I wouldn't think it would be that unusual for a place like the Vatican Archives to have high tech like that. So how did the Vatican get this stuff? Oh, well, here's the question. They've had it for decades, before the museums, before the labs. How did they get their hands on it first? Did they make it themselves because of the documents that they had that told them about it? From ancient civilizations, superior intelligence give it to them? Did some ET tell them? I don't know. For example, the Book of Thoth, it's Egyptian. It's from the god of wisdom. They have that. They have the Picatrix, which is the medieval Arabic manuscript of alchemy and magic that talks about the preservation of parchment using alchemy. Alchemy is just pre-chemistry, like metaphysics is pre-physics. They had to start somewhere. So once again, why? They keep asking why, and they speculate. Why are they being so secretive? Because this stuff is expensive and difficult to implement on a large scale, and so they hung on to the knowledge because they figured no one could afford it anyway. It requires advanced skills and advanced infrastructure that's only available to institutions with quote unquote considerable resources. Or is what they have so powerful that they're afraid that they can't disclose it without adequate control? Because it would go into the wrong hands, we'd all be in big trouble. Let me give you an example. We're going to talk about this more later, but I'll just throw this out here. Connecting consciousness with technology. Can I remind you of Elon Musk? Speaking of the wrong hands. So they fear the misuse by governments or other entities because they could have potentially dangerous applications. So some of these technologies have emerged in select areas. So they're letting it out a little bit, is the belief. Aerospace, for example, biomedicine, and in very high-level museums. Slowly being released, but it's not common knowledge, and it's really in a small area, small disciplines. So how long is it going to be before they let go of some of these revelations? Well, right now they have very strict security protocols and very close supervision and exceptional process of getting permits that's required. They have protocols to prevent leaks. The prefect is somebody that is in charge of what you do before you do something. The prefect of the Vatican Secret Archives gets to decide who gets access and who doesn't. The more secretive the information, the harder it is to get to it, of course, and the more rigorous the process of access. And some, of course, is only the Pope and his buddies. So they do this series of checks to get in. First, you do a written validated authorization, a request for a specific document, and you get this authorization from the prefect. Then they do biometric controls. So they take your DNA and your retinal scan, and they take your fingerprints and facial recognition. Then they do personalized electronic badges that allow access to only certain areas, and you pretty much have to physically prove you are who you say you are by proving all those biometrics. I think they've watched Mission Impossible or something once too often. They have surveillance cameras and advanced monitoring everywhere. Specialized guards, like special training guards, that's scary guys. Advanced encryption, entirely armored rooms. The whole room is like an armored car. They have doors made of special alloys. It can't be blown up or hit with a, a flamethrower or something. They have multiple simultaneous authorizations to unlock doors. It takes several people with the right codes at the same exact moment to get the door open. There's rumor of areas that are so secret that no one knows about them, but a few, and they may go far under Rome by a series of tunnels, and those have been known to exist for a long time. They have these weird emergency protocols. They have controlled self-destruction to keep sensitive information out of the wrong hands. So depending on what it is, parchment, a book, chunk of clay tablet with writing on it, no matter what it is, they've addressed the ability for it to self-destruct if somebody breaks into it without permission, which is pretty drastic. They use heat, thermal, chemical, or magnetic. There are evacuation procedures in case of a physical attack or an intrusion. So the entire system can be sealed off, trapping those people inside. I don't know, really scary. And there are rumored to be places outside the Vatican for use in an extreme emergency. They can flee with stuff and hide it there. They use AI to analyze movement and monitor suspicious activity, so you're always being watched by AI, which is creepy. They have quantum cryptography to protect digitized data, to prevent leaks if a document is stolen. And all this is just for historical documents? Probably for more stuff. So there are testimonies on the ET archives. Over the years, the insiders have made statements about the content of secret archives that are mind-blowing, paradigm shifting. This is coming from people who've worked there, gone on the record. And it would shake all the things, all the institutions. And the question is, once again, what does the Vatican have access to? There are opportunities to lay claim to ancient texts and artifacts of many indigenous cultures. And it would be possible to reveal this stuff, and they probably do have this kind of stuff because the missionaries and the explorers and the ecclesiastical representatives that went along took stuff. So if you go back at the history of the conquering of the Americas, religious clergy went with them all the time. There's a great movie called Mission, and it is, I just watch that movie. It's older. It's from the 90s, I think. It's really a good movie. So there's claims that some of these artifacts talk extensively about ETs. Monsignor Corrado Balducci, we've talked about him before, your friendly neighborhood or exorcist, says that the church is aware of the existence of ETs and they're part of the great divine design, and that the Vatican has worked with intelligence agencies and governments to collect and analyze the evidence. They're all working together to keep it a secret. There's a rumor the Vatican got top secret information in 1947 about Roswell. Colonel Philip Corso, who was an intelligence agent at the time, gave confirmation when he was dying. He said that there were high-ranking church prelates that were involved in discussing theological consequences of Roswell. Other researchers claim that some reference to this is true. I mean, they validate the story, but it's not going to be made public. Then there's this thing called the SIV report, and SIV is abbreviation for the Italian or the Latin, but in English it's the Vatican Information Service. And it claims that this contains the details of UFO sightings and encounters, that there are documents that do reveal that. And, you know, the Vatican Information Service is admitting it. That's interesting. Including studies done on the bodies of ETs and their technology. So the reference to ET encounters in the archives, it dates far earlier than modern ufology, you know, study of flying saucers. It goes way farther back than that, including some written in an unknown or extinct languages that refer to celestial deities. So for example, there's an example of this that's known. The Codex Lume, which has details of luminescent beings descended from the sky to instruct humans. This is supposedly drafted in the late Middle Ages by a secret monastic order, and it's linked by modern apocryphal specialists. So Professor Alison Conti is one. She links the information in this codex. A codex is a kind of book. It's bound on one side. So technically this would be a codex, but we usually don't use it unless we're talking about vellum, and this is paper. So parchment or vellum, but this is paper. But a codex is the earliest form of books, and it's linked by modern apocryphal people like Alessio Conti to Gnosticism and to references in the apocryphal Gospels. So there appears to be a connection between a lot of this writing that's all been sort of hidden away. The Dead Sea Scrolls, they mention celestial beings with extraordinary abilities and superior knowledge who helped human beings. The Roman Church has always maintained that humans have a special, unique place in creation over all other creatures. The revelation that extraterrestrial life exists that's way smarter than we are, that could really shake things up. What technological artifacts does the Vatican have? To reveal that would lead to leaps in technological progress. We hope the evolution of civilization, maybe new energy sources, maybe saving the planet. That'd be nice. New understanding of nature, of consciousness, of quantum physics. of our origins. There's speculation the Vatican has devices of unknown origin from governments, science organizations, and archaeology that have just given it to the Vatican because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to make of it. For example, documentation or how-tos about levitation and anti-gravity, about cell regeneration, about interdimensional communication. And here's one of my very favorite stories from this book, and I looked this guy up, is the chronovisor. Chrono for time, visor from to look at. So it's a time traveling tool that you can look into and look at the past. Now this is alleged by a Father Pellegrino Ernetti, and he claims that it observes past events. It was developed in the 50s, according to him. I think he's dead now, but according to him, it uses energetic traces of the past stored in the fabric of reality. Another way to put that would be Carl Jung's notion of the collective unconscious, the energy field, the information in the field around us. If you knew how to tune into it, and apparently this tool can, then you would be able to look at historical events. It's based on, and there's actually science behind this, it's based on quantum resonance. It's a system that lets you tune into a moment in the past and view it as a three-dimensional hologram. It also has fragments of non-human aircraft in these archives with unknown material. They talk about advanced tools at sacred sites that were misinterpreted as objects of worship. And this made me write in the margins. This is me talking now. This is not the book. For example, the Ark of the Covenant. Graham Hancock wrote a really good book, The Sign and the Seal and the Sign. I can't remember. He went to Ethiopia in search of the Ark of the Covenant, and what he discovered was really interesting. There is solid reason to ask the question anyway, was the Ark of the Covenant really an energy weapon? Because the way it's described from ancient times, you couldn't get too close to it, you get sick and die. It was kept in the Holy of Holies, and the Ark of the Covenant was in the Holy of Holies, the Sanctum Sanctorum, and nobody was allowed to go in there except people of a certain bloodline were they genetically protected. The Levites, I think it was, the priestly rank of people. Were they immune to the ravages of this possible radiation type weapon? It's a really interesting book, and I did cover it a long time ago, but I would recommend reading that book, Graham Hancock. So advanced tools that could be really weapons, but have been mistakenly worshipped as sacred objects. Stone tablets engraved with anachronistic scientific knowledge from celestial messengers. I mean, the other way to write that would be, how did these people who were etching in stone or writing on clay tablets, how did they know about energy weapons and things that flew and something that sounds like a laser? And how did they know all this stuff if they didn't really even have writing the way we know writing? It's interesting. The Sumerians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, they all speak, well, and also the Native Americans all over North America spoke of sky beings come to impart knowledge of advanced technology, advanced astronomy. There are suspicions about the verity of the version of Fatima that is told to the public, to journalists and historians from 1917. There's a reason to believe that there's more that's hidden. We've talked about that because the book mentions everything over and over and over. Antonio Socci is a journalist who claims part of Lucia's message at Fatima was omitted, maybe because it referred to future events or contact with extraterrestrials. Rumor is the Vatican hid this because they thought it was too shocking, but we couldn't handle it. They're afraid that, among other things, it would lead to a redefinition of the concept of divinity and also the place of humanity in reality. So the archive, let's get back to the actual physical archive. It has internal structures of rooms, miles and miles and miles of shelves, these protective cylinders. We know what little we do know, and we suspect more because of the testimony of those few who have had access and were later willing to talk. The archive is a labyrinth under Vatican City. There are entrances in the Apostolic Palace and in the real Vatican Library, the ordinary Vatican Library. There are multiple underground levels. They're not at all like traditional archives. Because of the advanced nature of their conservation and security and the weird stuff that's in there. They have sliding shelves with variable density, which reduces the risk of damage. They're fireproof. They're water resistant. They have inert gas sealing cylinders like argon or nitrogen. They have vacuum capsules for ancient parchments. They have advanced digitization. There's been a lot of pressure recently on the Vatican to cough up this information. The feeling is people are getting tired of secrets being kept. I'm going to go a little longer because I cut the last part short because of the stupid animals going crazy downstairs. Notice they're quieter because they got in trouble. Part 2, the connection between the Vatican and alien technology. Now, they're going to tell us several times that there's advanced technology, but they do get into details. Throughout history, there have been many reports of, UFOs and aliens. And although they were interpreted as mystical visions, there's reason to suspect that a lot of this stuff had nothing to do with mystical visions. In the Middle Ages, there weren't many reports of lights in the sky, fireballs, flying objects. A lot of them were seen and interpreted by clergy as omens in the sky, signs, good or bad, just depending. In 1561, we talked about this, the weird aerial battle that went on above the city of Nuremberg and freaked all kinds of people out. It's documented in art of the time. It was in the newspapers of the time. It was called mystical, but today if we saw it, we'd be going, oh, well, UFOs. In 1891, English priests and others saw giant luminous globes over a church in England, and it was recorded at the time in church documents. And this would be the kind of document that would be kept now in the archive. In 1950, Pope Pius XII was hanging out in the Vatican garden and reported seeing a huge, weird light in the sky, and a whole document was written up about it. Pope John XXIII had a close encounter with an ET in 1961 in Castle Gandolfo. He had trouble talking about it. It freaked him out so much. And there is documentation of it that's not being revealed to the public, but he told people. It's hard to keep something like that a secret. And then, of course, the Marian apparitions that happen in Fatima, Lourdes, Medjugorje, Guadalupe, just everywhere. They all talk about lights and orbs and interaction with celestial beings that have knowledge or messages. The miracle of the sun in Fatima and Medjugorje. Never mind. There were luminous entities with anomalous optic phenomena. Now, I don't know much about this, so I don't know what it is they saw, but it was impressive, apparently. So the observatory heads have said, do not exclude the possibility of intelligent life elsewhere that are interacting with us. Do not jump to the conclusion that it's spiritual. Interesting, coming from the Vatican, right? Rumors that the Vatican is collaborating with scientists to try to come up with some way to get this out there in the public without causing a lot of problems. And Paul Wallace, we've talked with Paul Wallace, we've covered his books, and he's in agreement with this. That there are all kinds of texts and engravings and objects that tell about encounters, and they've been collected historically. There were reports of descriptions of machines of light, beings of light that communicate telepathically. That's another thing. There's a lot of talk about telepathic communication. I heard a voice, but how'd you hear it? The Cistercians, which are a brand of religious order in the 13th century, so in the 1200s, at Lake Bolsena in Italy, they saw a being of light that appeared to a group of monks. It communicated telepathically with them and gave them mystical knowledge, but they're not talking about what the knowledge was. It's on documents that are hidden. There's a letter from Pope Sylvester II from the 10th or 11th century, 10th to 11th century. And he was known to be kind of the scientist of his time. He told of superior beings who come from the stars to observe our spiritual growth. That's interesting. In 1947, Pius XII wrote to church leaders warning about the coming new revelations in the skies. This is 1947. Making reference to ETs and anomalous sightings, and he indicated a sense of the need to prepare the clergy for revelations. There's a suspicion of unrevealed contact with ETs that happened in association with Vatican. We know that. The prophecy of Malachi, who talked about all the different popes. The arrival of Pope Petrus Romanus will be the end of the church. What's the Pope's name? Is his name Peter? That'd be crazy, wouldn't it? I have to look this up. I'm sorry. I know this is fascinating, but I can't stand it. I have to look it up. What's the Pope's real name? Oh, okay. Robert Francis Prevost. Better hope there's no Pope Peter anytime soon. Padre Pio, the guy that had stigmata. He talked about visitors from the sky. Hildegard of Bingen had visions of celestial beings. And all of this stuff is documented and kept in the archives. Lately, the Vatican's been showing a growing interest in more acceptance of the idea of ETs, the possibilities. They're lightening up, and maybe there's a purpose behind that. The Vatican Observatory has taken an active role in all of this. And here's the thing I mentioned in the last video that I learned something I had no idea. I think this is really interesting. The Vatican has an observatory, the Vatican Observatory, at the Castle Gandolfo. We talked about that. They actually have a second one, the Specula Vaticana, the eye of the Vatican, at the Mount Graham International Observatory in Arizona. I had no idea. It's been there since 1993 in partnership with the University of Arizona. I'm getting hiccups, sorry. The University of Arizona is in partnership with the Vatican. I just was blown away by that. Not only because Arizona's been a hotbed of ET, UFO sightings and activity since about that time. the black triangles and its proximity to New Mexico and what's been going on, Dulce and what's the other place? Well, Roswell, Area 51. All of that. That's just too much. I couldn't believe it. So, sorry, Vatican is in cahoots with the University of Arizona. They've hosted international conferences there and in Rome. The Vatican has been less and less dogmatic, as we just said, earlier. They've been a little more scientific about the whole idea that, well, let's embrace our brothers and sisters of outer space. Alien life is just a greater manifestation of the power of God. So Father Jose Amuth, I don't know how to pronounce it, in 2012, another exorcist, talked about Marian apparitions as misunderstood ET visitations in a paper that he wrote. Well, in a paper he wrote for, a newspaper he wrote for, Il Giornale, just right out there, brazen as can be in the public, talking about that. That's astounding. Then Monsignor Balducci, of course, he says, don't dismiss UFOs. Some are authentic, and ETs are not incompatible with being a good Catholic boy or girl. So the archives are believed to hide historical truth. It's almost impossible to deny it. And the Vatican is playing some weird role in all of this science and astronomy. It's to get people to accept a slow disclosure or a slow rollout. The church drops hints. ETs are okay with God. Big hints in their speeches, conferences about it, papers looking at ETs from a biblical viewpoint. They're big on doing that too. This all used to be called heretical. This was demons, Now it's open more and more and open-minded more and more, and they may have been delaying disclosure until they could verify what the governments are up to, trying to coordinate it. Nobody wants to get left behind. Nobody wants to be the first to really reveal things that are undeniable. Nobody wants to get left behind. Nobody wants to let somebody else get control of the situation, the narrative and the stuff, the access to technology. So here's an example. There's a report of a tetrahedron of light. It's an aircraft, and they don't know if it was shot down, how it was recovered, but it was found very heavily guarded. It was transferred to a secret facility. It was first detected by experimental radar. Apparently, this is recently, because this radar was a new thing. Super top secret hush hush. It's called a high interest strategic anomaly. It's an 8-foot in diameter tetrahedron with white tubular construction. It was empty. Its properties were really not known to science, and I don't really know what that means. It had a smooth surface, no joints, no welds. So was it created by some kind of molecular synthesis or nanotechnology? In the center, it had 3 luminous globes suspended without support, giving off intense, non-blinding azure light. So it was blue light you could look at. It wouldn't make you blind, but it was intensely bright. It can mutate in reaction to an external stimulus. That might be nanotechnology, self-repairing. It's hyper advanced technology that humans just don't have. What is it? Something camouflage? Something about self-defense? The blue globe in the center, is that an energy interface, or is that an autonomous intelligence? The story is the Vatican Archives have got this thing. It pulses in light patterns, and they're asking, is that data that it's letting out, or is it collecting data like a quantum computing thing or artificial neural network? Is it advanced AI? And sometimes it pulses in a pattern. Is it sending information somewhere? Some suggest it's a living technical organism, self-regulatory, mutating to adapt to the environment. This is too creepy. Sort of a symbiotic device, consciousness and technology combined. The material itself is not within the traditional laws of physics as we know them. It's resistant, it's uncuttable. No chemical has been able to affect it. It regenerates itself. Radiation doesn't hurt it. It has no propulsion. There's no official confirmation of how or where it was found. That's why we just jumped into the topic without a date or a place. Was it shot down? We don't know. But a number of different reliable insiders have whispered about this. It manifested itself in a controlled environment. Was it left by a superior intelligence in order for us to study and expand our knowledge? Is it an autonomous drone? What, from where, why, who? Nobody is talking. It's just whispered about. There are other earlier reports of anomalous craft like the tetrahedron. Therefore, it could be part of a broader range of technology. It could just be one of many. Most fascinating of all, it has no propulsion. It's like experimental black programs of the Air Force and the defense community. It displays magnetic levitation and torsion field propulsion. I have no idea what that means. Quantum vacuum manipulation. Please don't ask me in the comments. I flunked physics. I really don't understand what any of this means. It sounds hard, and it sounds important, and it sounds like nothing we learned about in school. Is the government already deciphering ET technology and putting it to use? And that's what we're looking at, something made by the government? So they talk about Project Aurora. This is a hypersonic aircraft. This is unconfirmed. Once again, rumors, but seen by people I witnessed. And there are unclassified documents that suggest it's been tested at Groom Lake and at Edwards Air Force Base. They're nefarious places. There's rumor that it uses back-engineered alien technology. It seems to use something like experimental meta materials. They have unique reactions. They're self-healing. They're controlled. They control the refraction of light. They're resistant to any mechanical stress. And it's very similar to what was found in Roswell in 1947, the sheet of aluminum that wouldn't bend or destroy. And Bob Lazar from Area 51, the scientist who was told, figure out how that spaceship, what the propulsion system is. And there was no engine and no transmission. So he discusses element 115, I believe it is, that has anti-gravity properties. It could indicate an entire class of technology based on unknown physics. I think it pretty well does. And it's being studied, has been studied for decades, and maybe some of the technologies now being used by us. Nevertheless, this object ended up in the Vatican Archives. These things are transmedium. I like that term. It's interesting. And that means they can operate on the ground, drive around, in the air, fly around, in the water, like a submarine, and then also in deep space. And the Pentagon has said, yes, They do exist, and officially they are publicly reported, but no explanation of who, why, what, from where, none of that. So, how far behind in public science by comparison to classified understanding? We have a technical bifurcation, two classes of knowledge: those who are in the know and all of the rest of us who are deprived of information. The secret is restricted, and it's the most advanced stuff which is hidden from the public. There is a fear that disclosure will unbalance global economics and global politics. For example, and we'll talk about this a little more later, free energy would be an instant paradigm shift for transportation. What if they have indestructible materials? What would the auto industry do? Military, what would they do? Radical changes would be faced, and the governments want secrets. They want to keep the lid on it. It's the speculation that they're introducing them to the consumers slowly through electronics and renewable energy. Some of the stuff they have is shape-shifting and interactive devices like the tetrahedron would shake up aerospace, biomedicine, everything, especially AI and neuroscience. I think I'm going to stop here. This just goes on with all kinds of examples. And here, it's the end of number 2. And we'll start number 3. So I think you see what I made a point of at the very beginning in video number 1. This book is overlappingly repetitious and keeps asking the same questions over and over without answers. And yet there is just enough unusual information in it that I haven't heard before, that it keeps you reading. So it does hold the interest, but I do find myself jumping through parts that, I've read this before. Okay, I have to go. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Come back and hear the rest. Slán go fóill. Slánte.